Hello. Before we begin, just take one breath with me. And I want to ask you something honestly. Have you ever had a season where the old version of you stopped working, but the new version of you didn't feel clear yet? What used to motivate you no longer does. The roles you carried feel heavy. The patterns that once helped you survive now feel like they're suffocating you. And there's this strange in-between space where you don't feel like who you were, but you don't yet know who you're becoming. Many people call that being lost. But what if it isn't? What if it's growth? What if it's your old identity falling away? And now, you're about to find life. Hello, and welcome to the Aligned Human Project podcast, where consciousness meets creation and alignment becomes a way of life. I'm your host, Elgin, and today we're talking about identity change. Not the kind that people post about, the real kind. The kind that can feel like grief, confusion, discomfort, and disorientation right before it becomes freedom. So let's start with this. There are seasons in life where clarity does not arrive first. First comes friction. First comes discomfort. First comes feeling that what used to fit no longer does. And because the mind wants certainty, it often labels that season as failure. I'm lost, or I don't know who I am. Something is wrong. But sometimes confusion is not dysfunction. Sometimes confusion is what it feels like when an old identity stops working, and that distinction matters. Because if you mislabel growth as failure, you might run back to a role that no longer fits. And it can happen to all of us. I remember when I was shifting and I was in a car accident, was a couple car accidents, and I had a brain injury. And I would realize later that I had a nervous system injury. And I was talking with my doctor and I said, I feel like one portion of my life is ending and the next portion is beginning. And I feel like I'm trying to close one door and I'm trying to open the other door, but I can't quite reach. And my doctor said, yes. Do you know what that's called? I said, no. And she said, life. At that point, I was so uncertain of what was coming up, what was going to be in my future, what that would even look like, that I wanted to go back. It didn't matter if I was feeling off and not fulfilled, like things weren't fitting anymore, that I didn't fit. What was coming up for me was I knew that. I knew how to be good at that. And so this new identity of whatever she was going to be, that was terrifying. And a lot of the time, I was mistaking that discomfort, that unknown, that fear as it being wrong. What if I make a mistake? What if this is not what I'm supposed to be doing and I just burned my whole life down? What if this isn't the right moves for me to be making? What will people say? What would people think? And it's this that so often people abandon their growth, their future, their dreams to regain familiarity. And we mistake that familiarity as security, as safety. And that is where things start to really go wrong. Because the truth is, uncertainty is not always danger. Now let's talk about identities themselves. Because many identities are adaptations. Not every identity was chosen consciously. Many were formed through an experience. You became the survivor, the achiever, the fixer. How about the caretaker, the people pleaser, the strong one, the one who never needs help, the victim, maybe the rebel. These identities often served a purpose. They helped you cope. They helped you belong. They helped you navigate pain. They helped you survive environments that required adaptation. So I never believe in shaming old identities. We need to respect them. They were intelligent responses. But just because something once protected you doesn't mean it must lead you forever. And this includes even jobs. One of the scariest identities I needed to disintegrate was the identity of survivor. Of all the identities that I carried, it was by far the strongest. And it was deeply ingrained in all of the stories of my past. So when I realized that a survivor is a fighting victim, it became a game changer, a deal breaker for me. I needed to move from victim to survivor, fighting victim, and now I needed to move on and continue the growth into somebody that flourishes, that's victorious, that thrives. And I needed to not be mad or frustrated with myself for being a survivor. What I needed to do was have a lot of gratitude for that role. That role of a survivor allowed me to find my grit, to find my willpower, to fight for myself, to move on. And so I don't need to have resentment towards that role that I played that in many ways did keep me stuck or glued to my past. Because the truth is the survivor needs the old stories to stay alive to justify the role. And so to let go of the role of survivor meant I also had to let go of the baggage of all of those dramas, all of those traumas. I had to release them. So I don't need to feel resentment for that version of myself. What I needed to feel was a lot of gratitude. And even to this day, I have an incredible amount of gratitude and compassion for the previous versions of myself. Those versions of it myself that allowed me to get to this moment. But if I had stayed in those roles, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't be the partner, the wife, the mother. I wouldn't be the friend that I am today. I wouldn't be the contributing member of society that I am today. And it's important. When we feel resentment, resentment is an exhausting energy to carry. So resenting the people that had hurt me, which is what feeds the identity of survivor, the energy of survivor holds a lot of hostility. It holds hostility to the experience. It holds grudges to anybody that has said or done anything in the past. And all of that weighs us down. It is connected scientifically with premature aging, with chronic stress. So those identities become exhausting to carry forward if we have resentment towards them. But when we have compassion, when we have love towards them, it's filled with a ton of light. With compassion, you can honor what helped you and still outgrow it. Now, this is where the brain helps explain the struggle. And there's a struggle. Your brain is constantly organizing experience into a sense of self. It uses memory, pattern recognition, and prediction. It builds stories like, this is who I am. I am a survivor. This is how life works. I got to have grit. This is what to expect. And what is familiar often feels more believable than what is new. Even painful identities can feel safer than unfamiliar freedom because the unknown has a map and the new does not. So when people say they miss the old version of themselves, or in my words, I just want my life back. Sometimes what they miss is not the suffering. What they miss is the certainty. We can see this in relationships. We take a look at how we evolve, how we look and perceive this world. And chaos, if we grew up in chaos, it can feel a lot more comfortable than peace. This is why people will sabotage healthy relationships. This is why they'll repeat dysfunctional relationships. Because if they learned that love, of what they've perceived as love through their family, was yelling, hitting, then often they'll get into some form of dysfunctional relationship because that is what their nervous system understands. It doesn't understand kindness. It doesn't understand compassion, respect. This is why rest can feel uncomfortable after we've lived in survival mode. The nervous system often prefers familiar discomfort over unfamiliar peace. And this is where your deeper truth really matters. You are not the role. You are not the coping strategy. You are not the identity built in response to pain. You are the one that is aware of it, the witness, the superconscious, the soul, the superconscious presence beneath every version you have ever played. And this matters because if you are the witness, then no role is your final truth. You can release what was adaptive without losing who you are, because who you are has never been the mask. There is often grief in transformation. Grief for the years spent in survival. Grief for what the old identity cost you. Grief for the comfort that was known. Grief for the person who carried so much. And if grief arises, it does not mean you are going backward. It may mean you are loving the old self enough to let them rest. So let's do this together. Take a deep breath all the way down to your belly. Ask yourself, what identity feels heavy now? The achiever? The fixer? The survivor? The one who must hold it all together. The one who stays small to belong. Just notice. And now ask, what did this identity help me do? And offer some gratitude, some appreciation. And now ask, what quality wants to emerge now? Peace, truth, joy, authenticity, leadership, rest, trust, patience, forgiveness. And take one breath with that. You do not need to know the whole future identity today. Just the next step. Just the next honest step. Many people think they need to find themselves. Often, they need to release who they are not. You are not lost because the old version of you no longer fits. You may be standing in this sacred discomfort of becoming. Think of the butterfly. And if you stay present there, a truer identity can emerge. Not built from fear, built from alignment. That changes the field. And when the field changes, the form follows. And if this resonates, this is the work we do inside Align Your Life, inside of the Aligned Human Project. and inside of Alignment Operating System, helping people move beyond survival identities into aligned ways of living, leading, and creating in your life, in your relationships, and in the systems that you touch. If you're here to build a life that doesn't cost you your nervous system, to lead, love, and create from alignment instead of exhaustion, you're in the right place. This is practical spiritualism. This is the Aligned Human Project. And this is where we stop reacting to life and we start creating it. Alignment isn't something you achieve. It's something that you practice. So keep pausing, keep feeling, and keep choosing. You are the witness. You shape the field, and the field shapes your life. You are not here to fix yourself. You are here to remember yourself. Because when you align with your truth, everything else begins to align with you. If this episode sparked something inside you, hit follow or subscribe and share it with someone walking their own path of awakening. And if you're ready to go deeper, you'll find free resources, programs, and community spaces waiting for you at practicalspiritualismco.com. Remember, alignment isn't a place you reach. It's a practice you live. So keep pausing, keep feeling, keep aligning. You are the field. You shape the form.